Probably.
Will you come talk about the Hawaii response, Mr. President?
Nothing.
All right, hello, and welcome to News from the Pew, where we take news from around the interwebs, distill it to make it slightly less frightening. I'm your host, Rick Barrett. I'm the Armed Catholic. You can find me thearmedcatholic.com, and I'm joined with my full panel of gentlemen. So we are going to get into it after I introduce you to them. We have Mr. Jonathan Arrington coming to us from the great state of Georgia, which has indicted Trump for 475,000 things. So congratulations to you guys. We have Mr. Fawaz Yazi, just recently back from a hip-hop concert in California and then off to Michigan for another because he can't stop, won't stop. And then we have Steve Cunningham. So, folks, let's get to our first story of the day. After our show last week, we had the incident that took place in Maui. Apparently there was it actually happened. There was a giant wildfire that took place on the Big Island and did a lot of destruction. And the response to it has been mixed, but I'll leave it up to you to decide.
You know, our family and our friends, the remains we're finding is through a fire that melted metal. We have to do rapid DNA to identify them. Every one of these 89 are John and Jane Does. We know we got to go quick, but we got to do it right. So when we pick up the remains and they fall apart, and so when you have 200 people running through the scene yesterday, and some of you, that's what you're stepping on. I don't know how much more you want me to describe it. That's what you're stepping on. Give us a little bit of time to contain that. Please. Because we've got to go make 89 notifications. And coming from a place that had to make 58, I understand the pain this is going to take.
He's referencing the fact he was in Vegas.
So just understand what this thing is, because none of us really know the size of it yet. Everybody wants a number. You want it fast or you want it right? We're going to do it right.
By the way,
we just need the prayers, and, we need the money to rebuild our town. This is going to be a long road ahead of us. And we're just trying to fundraise and make sure that the displaced families can go back home one day. There's a lot of real estate speculation happening right now that is really frustrating. And I just want to remind all you real estate investors around the world, like Lahaina is not for sale. Please don't reach out to these families and take advantage of them during the most devastating time of our lives.
We just heard from our reporter and from a couple of women who say that they were upset about what tourists were doing. Now you're telling me that there are real estate investors reaching out to people about their property. What's going on exactly?
Yes, homeowners have been reached out by investors and realtors offering to buy their land. And this is disgusting. And we just want to make sure that people around the world understand our situation and know that Lahaina is not for sale. It is important that the multi-generational families that come from Lahaina get to continue to live in our hometown.
Door sirens on Hawaii's second largest island sat silent as people fled for their lives. And with mounting concerns of why none of them went off, we asked Herman Andaya, the head of Maui's emergency management agency, about his own qualifications.
Do you regret your decision, and have you considered handing over the reins to somebody with more experience?
To say that I am not qualified, I think, is incorrect.
Andaya's defense of his actions are his first public comments since the wildfires broke out.
Do you regret not sounding the sirens?
I do not. And the reason why...
So many people said they could have been saved if they had time to escape. Had a siren gone off, they would have known that there was a crisis emerging. And as we know, so many bodies were found in the ground as the flames caught their heels.
Give me the answer? The sirens, as I mentioned earlier, is used primarily for tsunamis. And that's the reason why many of them are found, almost all of them are found on the coastline. The public is trained to seek higher ground in the event that the siren is sounded. Had we sounded the siren that night, we're afraid that people would have gone Malka. And if that was the case, then they would have gone into the fire. By the way, I should also note that there are no sirens Malka or on the mountainside.
According to the state's own government website, those sirens can be used for a variety of natural and human-caused events, including wildfires.
Wildfires. If we were unsure exactly how everything started, this new video overwhelmingly points to one culprit. And this comes from Jennifer Pribble, a senior research coordinator at the Maui Conservation Center, who narrates security footage from 10:47 p.m. August 7th.
There's a flash, and I think that's when a tree's falling on a power line. The power goes out, our generator kicks in, the camera comes back online, and then the forest is on fire.
And according to experts, that bright light that you saw was probably an arc flash, which is what happens when a power line comes in contact with vegetation or another line, or gets knocked down, releasing power, usually through sparks. And a few hours later, after that fire had quickly eaten through thick trees, dead branches, and eucalyptus-flecked gulches, another one ignited next to an electrical substation in Lahaina after a bright flash, with all this mounting evidence strongly suggesting that these and other wildfires, which are now responsible for at least 106 confirmed deaths, were spiked by Hawaiian Electric's infrastructure. And with this, you had 8 residents telling the Washington Post that they had long raised concerns with the company about its aging poles and power lines strung across Maui. And 4 days before the fires broke out, despite multiple warnings, Hawaiian Electric reportedly failed to cut power ahead of the windstorm. And this, even as other utilities in states like California, Oregon, and Nevada had done so following infernos caused by electrical equipment in their communities.
Voiceover, this is footage earlier at Napili Park. I didn't feel safe speaking freely about the situation while I was there, but the police are issuing permission slips for residents to freely come and go to their homes, to other parts of the island.
How long have you guys been in line to get these? 3 hours? Been in line 3 hours, but it's probably longer now, you know.
Okay, I just didn't want to talk over where I was actually speaking live there, but I'm going to walk along the line so you can see there are thousands of people here at this park. There were 2 separate locations where they told people to come get these permission slips, which would allow them to leave their houses, travel to other parts of the island that were unaffected, and return. Now, one very important thing to note with all of this is many of these people, including us, live approximately 20 minutes away from the fire, and we are very, very far away from any structure or any, any building, car, anything like that that was directly affected by the fire. We watched the fire from very far away, and there was no fire here. Another important thing to note is the power is now back on. At the time, at least where we live, the power is back on at the time that I'm making this video, but we do not have communication, and we have some other issues still. Now, the thing that I don't understand, and I've asked many people who are police, who work for the mayor's office, I've asked them why this is necessary, why people cannot go freely from their houses to other parts of the island that were unaffected and that have medical supplies and other things that they may need, and free communication to the outside world without having to hike to the top of a hill and get to a tower on Molokai, which is what I've been having to do. And nobody's been able to tell me why this is necessary, what the safety concern is with people who live here leaving their houses and returning. But I don't believe anything they tell you about this. I mean, a lot of people have said, oh, the people can do that, but I have interviews of many residents saying otherwise, where they were, stuck in Kihei, stuck downtown, and so you're given this choice, and then they tell you that, oh, well, there's a medical trailer. There's a medical trailer down in Gateway, which is there sometimes and has some things, but it doesn't have the medication that I need. It doesn't have the medication that many other people need. I've interviewed people who cannot get their medication, and they're being given a choice of leave your house without being able to potentially come back and be homeless downtown, live in your car, whatever, and then you can get your medication, then you can get the food you want to eat, then you can get the water you want to drink, or stay here and eat the food that we designate to you, drink the water, get the information that you need. I've actually been told by multiple people when I've complained about the fact that we don't have free communication to the outside world. I've been told all the information that you need is coming from the planes, which is insane. I mean, it's basically, these planes fly overhead and they give you these little, 5-second messages, and that's it. That's all we have. And then I've been told, oh, there's free Wi-Fi here, there's free Wi-Fi there. This I have not found. I've been all over the West Side, and at least for me personally and for my wife, we have not been able to connect to any of these Wi-Fi networks with any success. So there's a lot of crazy things going on out here. There's a lot of things that are not right, in my opinion. Please stay tuned.
Yeah. So a lot of stuff going on. And the fact of the matter is there's a lot of conspiracy, as you can see with that guy, coming up with that as well, talking about the sources of the fire, even though there's, and we'll get to that as we go along. But the first thing I'll throw out to the panel, and you guys can answer this however you'd like. We'll start with John. The entire idea here is that you grow up in these United States with the promise that something happens, your government is there for you, and they will help you get back on your feet. And whether it was the residents of the of this little town running into the water for safety with no help, no response from their federal government, or even the U.S. government with the U.S. Navy. I mean, Pearl Harbor is in Hawaii, and they do have capabilities of search and rescue and, I don't know, battleships and aircraft carriers and stuff that they could put these people on, yet there's none of that happening. So, John, your reaction to the response of local and federal government in this?
Just more of the same. I mean, it's almost like it's planned incompetence. Like we want to set the bar so low that if people repeatedly think, oh boy, government can't do anything, then maybe when it gets to something, I mean, please forgive me, anyone that might be watching from Hawaii, dare say this, but something even more serious or more grave than what happened there in Hawaii would happen, elsewhere on the mainland, or just even to the whole country, some sort of planned disaster, let's say, by hypothesis, just guessing that something like that might happen. Your expectations get lower and lower. I mean, it's hard to imagine that they could actually get any lower, but sometimes repetition like that really does make you lower your expectations. So that's the only thing that comes to my mind, is that there's some sort of concerted effort to just make us very unimpressed with the way the authorities, who basically have it as their job to take care of issues like that, could be so poor at it, and just do some things where you think not only was the initial response bad, then the response about their response even worse. To hear that guy say, no, I'm not sorry about not having the sound of the alarms. So it just seems to me that there's definitely more than meets the eye right now. I mean, I've tried to follow some of the alternative news suggestions about how odd the timing, the initial progress of the fires were, things like that. And I mean, it all sounds bad. It all sounds, if you followed any of the 9/11 literature, sounds eerily familiar. Not obviously not all the same exact things happening, but just the same sorts of, from a natural standpoint, inexplicable realities. Like, really, how does that happen? So I don't know, just more reason to make you wonder. But again, that's with each one of these things. That's the only thing that comes back to my mind every single time is, okay, as bad as all that sounds, though, why? I still think there's maybe something else behind it. Like, why? You know what I mean? Like it couldn't be that bad just because the people are that incompetent. It's almost like there's a planned incompetence because there's even something else going on behind the scenes that's even worse. Again, God pardon me, and you all from Hawaii, forgive me for saying it, but something even worse than what happened there. That's just what comes to my mind.
Well, John, think about this. The governor of Hawaii has already come out and said that he has plans to purchase the land that has been destroyed. And as you said, the bodies aren't even cold yet. And yet he's talking about, oh, well, we have plans for that land. It's like, well, I'm sure the people who live there have plans for them too.
Yeah, I mean, it'd almost be like having, LeBron James as a high schooler saying, all right, none of you teams don't even dare think about drafting me number one. Like, why would you even say that? Okay, maybe they pick someone who said, don't even think about trying to reach out to purchase our homes. Maybe that lady said it out of sincerity, but to even let that be publicized on radio or television, you got to think, okay, well, of course not. Like anybody with half a heart would never do that. So why would you even let that be published? Or publicized like that? It's almost like they wanted that to be heard because then it suggests to investors or the government, yeah, do it. So yeah, I agree, Rick. Like that really sent out the warning bells in the head.
Yeah, exactly. Fwaz, let me throw this out to you. The reason why the U.S. government or the feds and Joey B, who's on a beach right now, unfortunately, don't care is because they have Hawaii locked up. Those 4 electoral votes, no matter what they do, are going to go the way of the Democratic Party. So there really is no incentive for them to really respond as quickly. I mean, I hate to do the whataboutism, but we're going to do it just for context sake. When Puerto Rico, which isn't even a state, got battered by a hurricane, and we had reports every day from the mayor of San Juan, right, is in Puerto Rico. Yeah, she was making a name for herself, blasting Trump about how we're all dying. Remember, there was things of water behind her. She's like, oh, we don't have any water while it was there. And yet this whole thing is allowed to completely sit on the back burner, go back ahead, because there's no political gain for anybody to help the people of Hawaii.
No, and again, great to be with you guys again. To quote the great Mike Pence, this isn't my concern. That's what Biden is really saying. This isn't my concern. And why would it be? Like you said, Hawaii has gone blue, for decades, and it's Obama. It's Obama country over there. But I got 2 companies that there he is raising money for himself. There's really 2 companies that you have to pay attention to when it comes to all this. It's BlackRock and Vanguard. In all reality, every single thing every tragedy that happens when we talk about land grab, these guys are going to definitely put even if the federal government ends up purchasing it or the state government, like we saw with the governor, guess it's still for sale, and Vanguard and BlackRock will swoop in and purchase. These guys are, what is it, $12 trillion between the two, $15 trillion. They have more money than anybody, so they're completely, look at that, exactly. That's who owns the electric industry, exactly. Vanguard and BlackRock. And so I was watching. I wasn't watching this, but I did see a clip of The Simpsons. Somebody showed this about how they. There was this aerial plane or something that could laser focus and fire on a certain area, and not saying that this is what happened or we have this type of technology, but it's always interesting how they always program things and tell us right in front of our face what they're going to do, either through movies or through music or through media. And then it happens. The next thing we know, people are saying, wow, The Simpsons got all these predictions correct. Well, it's not so much prediction. It's more of here's what's coming. And it's right in your face. So it's a shame what happened to these people. That guy was probably told not to ring the alarm because they have no incentives in saving any lives. Because if you have dead people, guess what? If families are burying families, their family members, last thing they want to do is deal with the land or the property. They're going to sell. They're going to sell for cheap. They just want to get rid of it. It comes with bad memories. So they don't want anybody to survive this. They want to steal their land. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard just today there was another fire. I believe is it in Hawaii too? I think there was another one. These are going to keep happening. You have all of these trees. They could, all within electric lines. All you got to do is cut a tree down. Boom, you got a fire. It's going to spread. They control where it spreads, and then they go in and buy this land. It's going to happen everywhere. Vanguard and so you're not going to have 15-minute cities unless they're owned by these companies. Unless Schwab and his right hand people come in and take them, just to set it up for Steve. But it is a shame that people, human beings, are disposable to these agents, and I know Satan's behind a lot of all this. They have their timeline in which they want to get this all done. They're the 2025 to 2030. Things buckle up. Things are going to get worse before they get better.
Yeah, exactly. Thinking about the fact that the siren systems that the incompetent boob at in the Hawaii government said it was only used for tsunamis.
It was a diversity hire.
Yeah, the diversity. Well, I mean, in Hawaii, they're all diversity guys. But on their website, it says that it's an all hazard system that could be used for natural and human events: tsunamis, hurricanes, dam breaches, flooding, wildfires, volcanoes, terrorist threats. There are 400 sirens statewide and 80 of them on Maui, putting out 121 decibels. So even if you blast those out and they're not near the beach or whatever his nonsense was, people are going to hear them. And so it's very interesting in that regard as well. And of course, I'm sure the idea behind all this is to try and, push this to the side as quickly as possible. So, Steve, your thoughts on this entire thing?
Here's a little bit more on that tsunami thing. I mean, how they're incredible. Apparently,
we have them here in Texas. They do them once a month to test them, and you can hear them everywhere.
Yes. So this is an article I found on A&D magazine. It's in Clown Planet. I did about 30 minutes of the 2-hour Clown Planet on it yesterday. What we talk about the money wise, $5.52 billion estimated cost to rebuild Lahaina after a fire. They've already heard about insurances saying denying claims, which, hey, that's easy. It's their average home, the median home is 1.2, was it million? I think it was. Who lives that? Who can live that? Raise your hand. I don't make enough for that. I mean, shoot the guy from the guy that did the song Richmond above Richmond. He may be able to pull it off if he gives that pace for the next year. But I mean, that's money that nobody that's watching this has. I mean, you got who lives there? There's a map here. I think.
Are you talking about the celebs?
I mean, what's her face? Oprah's trying to get some land there. She has a ton of property there. She's looking to buy some more. Hey, what another big land grab did she do? South Carolina. You ever heard of Myrtle Beach? 1988. Hurricane Hugo comes in, destroys this podunk town called Myrtle Beach, South Kakalaki. All of a sudden, there's some lady from Chicago, Oprah Winfrey's buying all this property from Myrtle Beach. And look what it is now. She owns pretty much majority of Myrtle Beach. Here's the map estimates that need a shelter 4,500, 3,560 gallons of water, 9,000 meals a day needed down there. Bezos lives down there too. The map,
they all do. There's tons of them down there.
Oh yeah, he lives. Shoot, let me see if I can stop that.
Yeah, Owen Wilson has land down there. It's crazy the amount of high value individuals, we'll call them, actually have land on Maui
untouched. And I saw it there. He lives over here in that little corner right over there. And who else lives there? Yeah, obviously Will Smith, and then the AI bot Zuckerberg. He's got some property there. All those guys have made it unlivable down there. So these guys are now displaced. They won't be able to rebuild their homes.
What do you mean, Steve? As we see in the chat, Joey B's giving them $700 per household. They're good.
The same day that they gave a couple
gazillion dollars to another gazillion dollars to Zelensky.
Literally the same.
When is Zelensky going to donate some money to Hawaii? And why doesn't he come out and do it? Be like, literally, I got you guys. I got you, fam.
The Hawaii pledges protect Maui homeowners for land grabs. So like you guys brought up, they're already trying to grab the land. They're having curfews, lockdowns already down there. You saw the video. The guy can't even get Wi-Fi or anything. Not that Wi-Fi is technically important, but they can't get any kind of communication outside their little area. Talk about how many people were there. If that was a Trump rally, it was dozens of people, but that was a ton of people there. You're going to get through that line in a day. here's a map of fires in the I guess in the last year, I think it is. I can't remember exactly what it is. Just in the North American continent. Which, hey, by the way, that's
Canada.
all quote unquote America right there. It's North America. I'm getting off topic.
Canada.
Check this lady out, Grace. Really graceful. She's done 2 great shows on this topic. But first, I wanted to take care of some of the directed energy weapon case that a lot of people are showing, a lot of people are talking about, a lot of people are speculating on, and saying, "Oh, look at this!" And people are sharing pictures of homes with light bursts coming from them, which were photo opped. You got to do your due diligence, get 10i, check out what the reverse photo finders and all things like that. Just don't share blindly.
Yeah.
These links right here, and check out Last American Vagabond. He did a great job. As in this thing, he goes, what can we prove? Now, here's videos of the government literally talking about having these things. They do have it. This lady in this, check out the EW Athena laser. They have it. They talk about how it's used, where it's used, how good it is, how accurate it is, what does it burn through. They're happy about it. This is from 4 years ago. These things do exist. Here's another one. This is from Lockheed Martin 5 years ago. Laser weapon system, unmanned aerial systems. You can also think of Space Force. Rumsfeld talked about this 12 years ago. That's not going to play right now, but just you can see his face down there. She asked a couple softball questions, but Rumsfeld mentions DEWs. So these things do exist, and funny enough, the first place where DWs existed, I think, or the first building that it was built is in Maui. So that bit another coinky dinkles, but we can't say 100% that was what happened, and you can't say 100% that didn't happen. That whole thing with the electrical field, the electricity thing, you can bring that up because that has been, people have been talking about that they have a poor electrical grid going on. Bring that up in a minute. And they've been warning about things like that. And since you have these Bezos and other guys moving in, they're bringing in what would you call it? Landscape that isn't natural to that. Isn't
it'll be landscaping.
Just like I don't know if people know citrus fruit. It's not a Florida fruit. It's from Japan, and so you bring it over to Florida. They didn't. At first, you have to get acclimated. It's not natural to Florida, but they ended up making big money off it, which, sidetrack. There's a reason why it's become they have a problem with bugs down there because there's no natural predator for the bug that eats the citrus fruit tree. So if you have it like where I'm at, I have citrus fruit outside, there's no bug. But down there, they have a problem because that's all they grow. Back to that. So they have this unnatural habitat in Hawaii. It doesn't work that way. You get a different climate. All of a sudden, you get these fires like this. So that has some effect to it. Also, what for a while is kind of set up for a little bit. This is for 2018. My favorite World Economic Forum. Everyone knows that I look up these guys. How Hawaii plans to be the first U.S. state to run entirely on clean energy. What a coinky-dink. They're talking about 15-minute cities. They're talking about all this stuff, all in Hawaii. They talk about how bad the electrical grid is there, or the system is there. Oh, what can we do? Problem, solution. This is almost too easy to see what's coming down. Pray for the people in Hawaii. Yes, don't send money to Obama, but send something to help out the people in Hawaii for that, because those are, brothers and sisters down there as well. And do anything you can. I mean, they're so far away. I mean, it's stolen land. Let's be honest. It is. We took the land pretty much by a gun to their head, and we use it as a military field. They also brought up that the military. Were they up for rent? They didn't want something about the land that the military owns. They didn't want to re-up, and some curiosity that those lands have been barbecued. So there's been a lot of, the rich people's homes haven't been touched. It's been the regular people's homes that have been touched. There's some weird stuff going on. And a lot of people have been out there speculating that it's not natural, and that's people from there. Last American Vagabond had an interview with a lady that's in Maui, and it's a great interview. Check it out. And she goes 100% this was not natural, and gives reasons why, gives examples why. And she is not alone on that. So
it doesn't have to be weird. It doesn't have to be a directed energy weapon. It could be just good old fashioned arson and a good old fashioned controlled burn.
Could be. I mean, where's Rob? Where's Anthony and Rob? Are they in Hawaii? I mean, Rob likes to smoke some cigars a little bit. Maybe he threw it out the window or something, barbecued it down when they're trying to get a new interview. I don't know. But yeah, it could be. I mean, there was tacos down there in California. Could have made it out. When the sparks took over the winds, got to Hawaii, just hit the right place at the right time. There's a lot of things could have happened.
Yeah. There could be like a triple whammy type thing, if you don't mind, Rick. I just
absolutely go.
If it was some sort of weaponry, you could test it in Hawaii. You can grab people's land, and then the donations comes along. And guess what happens? That money gets funneled right back into the 2024 Democratic National Convention, like they did with Sandbag. What is his name? Sandman? With that fraud.
Sam Bankman-Fried.
Yep, and they did the same thing with in 2020 with the BLM stuff. They had that website. You give money to BLM, it went right to the Democratic National Convention. So you could do those three all at once, and it'll benefit the elite.
Yeah, you're 100%. There's always more than one layer. It's always more than one layer to do these kinds of things. It also keeps populations in line. Because anytime there is any kind of emergency, government steps in and reaffirms its superiority to you. Whether it's Hurricane Katrina, the stories about that, whether it's this, anytime there is a national or a emergency at the state level, it's an absolute cluster, and B, the government takes all extraordinary steps, revoking property rights, firearm rights, your right to come and go as you please, pretty much anything that you're entitled to supposedly as a free citizen of this union goes right out the window, so police can quote unquote maintain control
for safety.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. The culture of safetyism takes full effect.
If this was a natural thing, then God help them. If this was not, this was the genocidal act then.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and of course, Maui and Hawaii is Democratic run. So, the influence is there. You can point to, and I'm sure they would have no problem, especially as you said, Steve, they've already they've annexed this land by force. So, they might, our betters, as we like to call them, probably already look at it as, collateral damage, whatever needs to be done in order to promote and continue the agenda.
Just on the political side, I've seen a couple of people post about Democrat for Hawaii. That's a Hawaiian problem. That right there, this is a different problem. We're like we're all in this together type deal. Help those guys out because it could be us. But that how Hawaii is politically, that's a Hawaiian problem. This kind of like the idea of Yankeeism. I want you to live how I live. I'm going to force you to live how I live. That's not us. We shouldn't be thinking like that. Not saying that you guys were. I'm just saying to see people posting like that. So that's how the Northeasterners look down at us. We want those Southerners to live like us. How dare they be that way?
It's important to note that this town was a historical town. And what is one thing we're seeing across culture, across education? What is one thing that our political opponents want to do? They want to erase all traces of history. And this is a very old town. And the traditions that go with it. She even said the multi-generational families. There's a lot that goes into that. There's a culture there. Now that culture is gone. You can rebuild it. You can try to put those same families back. But what was there is now erased. And no matter how hard they'll try, you're going to get the ugly buildings. You're going to get as my good friend Mr. Page says, you're going to get these United States of beige. What do I talk about? Strip malls, beige. New apartment complexes, beige. It's soulless. It has no flavor. The same buildings and communities that you look at here in some parts of Texas are the exact same you'll see in the city of in Kansas City or in anywhere else. It's all uniform, ugly, depressing. That's now going to be there. Of course, they'll dress it up with some leis and like a palm tree and stuff like that. But the inner soul of it, the inner soul of that town, gone, no more. And it's going to be replaced by what these betters want. So we have that. What song are you talking about, Steve?
North of Richmond.
Oh yeah, I mean,
when you were saying about that culture and society and all that, I was thinking that's why that's been a hit.
That's why that song resonates so deeply with so many people, is because it real. I mean, Fawaz, have you heard it? Have you heard the song?
Yeah, the song's fantastic.
I mean, you're our musician. Why does that song? Because it's just a dude in a field playing one instrument. You know, there's not, I've heard people describe the song as simple. The lyrics are simple, all these other kinds of things.
There's a
Yet,
certain,
the first time you hear it,
right,
it's just had such an impact.
Well, music affects the soul in a certain way. There's a certain ruggedness and rawness to the song. It's not digitally manufactured. It's not Taylor Swift up there doing pop music. It's you can really understand what the guy is trying to say, and everybody resonates with this. We all know that there's a certain elite, and he's just saying what we've all been thinking. He just said it in music, what we've all been talking about at News from the Pew the last year. And I think that's why the song is fantastic. And I wish everybody could stand behind him. And if you're a politician running for office that's not in the urban areas, that is your message. That should be your message. And I think Anthony Oliver came out, and I know he had some issues with, a few years ago with drugs and alcohol, but it literally is a story of redemption and a story of somebody who's really trying to say, all of us are working our behinds off. How many TikToks videos do we see of people saying we're living paycheck to paycheck? When inflation is destroying our livelihood. And here a guy comes out and says, I'm in the middle of the field in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm complaining. Music can resonate that way in a beautiful way, and there's a raw and ruggedness of it that you don't get from pop artists and artists that are manufactured for millions of dollars. That's why it's beautiful.
That's absolutely. I mean, the first time you hear it, it's very much an impactful song in that way.
You know what's funny? If you don't mind me saying,
yeah, jump back in.
On the way back from Richmond, Virginia, for funny, I was sent an instrumental that's very folky, and I was driving back, and I was coming up with I had 8-hour drive, and I was coming up with a song in my head in the car, and it was about forgiveness and fatherhood. The song's called "Gave What He Had." It's about fathers who sometimes they make mistakes, but they put their dreams to the side, they took care of their families, and they gave what they had. And the reason I haven't released that song since that Anthony Oliver came up with that song, because I don't want to be seem like I'm trying to capitalize on this. But I promise you, people, when that song comes out, I made that song before I even knew who this guy was. So just letting you guys know.
Sure. All right. Fine. I guess we'll give you a pass on that one. I do want to throw this to John because I want to get you involved in the conversation, John. The funny thing about the song is that everybody listened to it. It got 15 million views on YouTube and 16 million on Twitter and all this other kind of stuff. And of course, the politicians, the conservative politicians, being so blinded and saying this is a song. It's like, dude, this is all the people in north of Richmond. This is both parties. And I think that's really the fact, is that these politicians, it's about the working. It's like, shut up, we're talking about you too, dummy. And I just want your thoughts on how blinded these politicians are to try and hitch their wagons to this.
Yeah, and that blind spot is I'd almost say is diabolical. Here's when I say that, I think Fawaz hit it. Like, there's something folksy about the song, and as he said, raw. And so it's a lot like folk music, which is in a certain way like the natural corresponding music to Gregorian chant, which is so naturally flows with the liturgy and with the words of the liturgy. I mean, it's truly a music that most suits the words that are at least found in the traditional Latin Mass. Byzantine chant has something very similar with its modes as well. But anyway, just to kind of get to that point that Fawaz hit on, it goes with what's there with the words, and this music really goes with the words, which is a gift, those who are into music. I mean, you recognize it for what it is. It truly is a gift. And to not see that this is reality. You don't have to offer any commentary on the song, I mean, here we are offering commentary on it, but it's a little bit different, But yeah, exactly. These politicians to not see that it's on them as well is just a complete blind spot. That again, I'd almost say you have to be completely supporting the unnatural, or nearly duped by the devil to not see that. But yeah, there's I think the rawness of the song is that it's just describing reality as we see it, and everybody says, "Yep, that's pretty much it." That's all you can say is, "Yep, that's it."
Yep, that's it. The fact of the matter is that every single person who connects with it has had that 12-hour work shift, has had that shift where you've bled, where you've just absolutely done everything, and then you look at your paycheck and you're like, "Nah, that was not really worth it." But you have no choice, so you gotta go back and do it again. And it's very interesting that folk music, I believe that folk music, at least America, it's very American. We don't really have folk music anywhere else. I'm sure there are versions of it in Europe and other places, but it's very interesting that the most American, you could say, version of it, of that genre produces something like that. And so it's interesting there. Steve.
I love that, McClanahan had a great one. He went 30 minutes on the song talking about.
By the way, Steve made fun of me when it was my Saint of the Week last week. Just want to throw that in there.
I didn't even know about it.
Yeah, because your boy knows what's up, but that's okay.
My cousin in Ohio texted to me, and he goes, "Hey, check this out. Sorry for the language that's involved." And I was like, "Okay, no problem." And it took me 2 days before I clicked it. And I had like, "Okay, what is this about?" So I think 20 million people already watched it before I even saw it. But I'm going, yeah, that's what we've been talking about I've been yelling about for the last couple of years too, and we've been talking about as well. I mean, I guess he put it up in the week after it hit YouTube. He was this Oliver. He was in Barco, North Carolina, which is like in the extreme northwest or northeast side of North Carolina on the coast, just across the bay of the Outer Banks, just south of Virginia. And I guess the town's 600 people. It's like all 600 and 600 more showed up. Kind of like when the eclipse went through Wyoming, they tripled their population at midday. So Barco had an influx of people at the farmers market, and everybody knew the song already. And you saw the commentators hating on it, calling it white supremacist, all that nonsense. They got their race in there. When Brian was talking about it, he goes, "This is a great thing." Talks about that everybody wants to say but can't say it because, again, he's calling out the Northeast. What's DC, centralized authority. They want to hear. They want to control your thoughts. We're going to control what you do. They're killing your money. They're making you work. All that. You'll own nothing. Be happy. That all that's. He even brings up Epstein Island. It was a fantastic little punch in the face on that. But yeah, I mean, nope. Even people. There was that video goes out. You see all these different people of all different creeds, colors, and things, and they're all loving it. And Brian brings up that Southern tradition that's unifies everybody, because that's Jonathan knows we're Rick, you're born and bred down here, and Fawaz is an immigrant to our great side of the area, but you figure it out, because what happens when people come over this way, they recognize the culture you live in, the kindness that people does to each other, the neighborhood effects, the local area. I mean, what is mostly people care about outside the South? They care about the pro teams, the big stories, the lights, the glamour, and all this. You come down to the South, they care more about the high school football game. You talk about, you want to think acting local, thinking local. Most people down here, they look, high school football is the thing. Rick's in Texas, they made a movie about it. In South Carolina, it's the same thing. I mean, where did you grow up?
There's a high school in Melissa, Texas, that just christened a $35 million stadium.
Yeah, huge. But yeah, I mean, but we down here, it's And on top of bigger than that, the biggest most people get is college football. When they say, the SEC or college football is the religion of the South, it is. It's that their temple. It is. But that's everything's revolves around being next to your neighbor, who your fan is, who's that. Everyone knows each other on the street. Everyone's got your back. They know your cousin Jimmy from 15 years ago who served your car and you gave him a Budweiser for instead of payment. We used to do that with our guy. We give him a 12-pack. Dad would give a 12-pack of beer for fixing the car. That's how it works down here. And so the culture itself, and people hate on it. People, the Yankees crap on it. Not Yankees as in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, things like that. It's the attitude of, I want them to live how we are. Those guys, they're pittance. Like you can be a Yankee, you can be a Yankee in Georgia. If you want to force your life onto someone else just by force, that's a Yankee puritanical mindset, and that's what we're talking about. So yeah, but that song has brought up a lot of people, unifying a lot of people from all walks of life. But it is a good line on that north of Richmond, because yes, the people saw the Confederacy in that because the first capital was in Richmond. When they put the capital there because they didn't want a war. That's why they put it there. Like we're not looking to go toe to toe, because we'll put it right down the street from you after it got burnt to the ground. Then they put it over there on the Gulf Coast. But at first they were like, no, that's when Lincoln came in. And you talk about like Trump with his indictments, and people were saying, lock her up, lock her up, lock her up. Oh, you should be imprisoning your political enemies until we can do it when Trump does. It's okay when we do it. But also you don't see any conservatives going, hey, that guy named Abraham, he imprisoned political enemies as well. But you're not going to see Beck or Hannity or those guys say that at all. But no, it's a great song. It's cool. It's good for Oliver to hit bank like that, and or strike a nerve in a good way. I mean, you talk about no money, and he put a camera on him, recorded, and played it in his backyard. Done.
And it's a great thing Rick Barrett called it last week. All right, so John, one more thing you wanted to get in.
I just wanted to add that since I think we all rightly jumped on Tucker Carlson for the big miss with Andrew Tate a few weeks ago. He did an interview with Ice Cube about the way, and this is kind of, I'm outing myself here, how much I was into rap, and from the time I was about 12 to 20, but really into it. But he mentioned, Ice Cube mentioned in this interview with Tucker Carlson, how much rap music has changed since he was in it, or at least how it changes once you get into it. Like you rap about the things that are real and that are raw, as you're kind of making a name for yourself. And then once you get signed, then it's like you got to toe the line. And some of the things he said in that brief interview were really, really, I don't know, just spot on, I thought. And it seems like in my brief experience on this earth, that there's something to that with pretty much all major music outlets, and really in every genre. I mean, I like all music, and have for since I was a kid. And it seems like there's something to that. I mean, even, just got to mention her because of the crazy prices that and crazy amounts of money that are associated with her. But even with Taylor Swift, kind of the raw, more close to reality things that she used to sing about, and now where she's gone with her craziness. But just, there's a trajectory there, and most people don't handle that fame well. And it's even, I'd say, even fewer who can look back and say, you know what? They got me at first, I was bitten by the money bug or by the fame and whatever else, notoriety bug. But Ice Cube has some pretty interesting things to say in that Tucker interview. Just talk about the way that entry into pro music is, if you don't mind calling.
I gotta ask, who are you listening to the most when you were younger? Who are you bumping?
Yeah, there wasn't one I didn't like. I mean, I'd listen to country, rap, R&B, pop, you name it.
I'm drilling this down. Who's your favorite hip hop artist, John? We're getting to the bottom of this one.
God rest his soul, Tupac.
There it is, folks. We have an official. Yeah, Steve, what are we pointing out? What did I miss?
Somebody made a great point in the chat about this, about the song, and want to give him a shout out for it. I don't know if he's watching. Hopefully he's still on.
I don't know. He's probably he's on his tour. He's on his tour right now.
But that's 100% right. It shows the racism is manufactured. I mean, you hear about them trashing us down here, say we're a bunch of racists and all this. We live The guy lives across the street from me. Black family. Down the street, another black family. Alexis de Tocqueville talked about that back in the 1800s, that the South, the races lived together and they lived in harmony. In his words, he says that. It was just that the law's government was not on their side. It wasn't the regular Joe. And if you look in the book, Politically Incorrect, the Guide Against the South, or about the South, it shows that only like 1 to 5% owned other people. And blacks own blacks. So there was blacks own whites. There's slavery on all race, on all things. But you go up north, and that's Alexis de Tocqueville said that too. And I go up to Cincinnati, and it's segregated. Pittsburgh segregated. The north is segregated. Down here, we all live together.
I mean, think about this real quick, and then I'll jump in.
Yes, sir.
Brown University, the guy who was named after was involved heavily in the slave trade, in the Northeast. Go ahead, Floss.
No, going back to what Jonathan was saying, that was a brilliant point, Jonathan. I don't know if some folks know this or not. It's the industry, the music industry kept this in wraps, but there was a whistleblower who was there at the time it happened, and I tend to believe these people who are considered conspiracy theorists than those who are trying to hide the truth. In '91, rap there was a huge shift in hip hop among the content in 1992, somewhere around there, and major record labels actually came together that were summoned by heavily foreign and domestic investors, and those people were invested in private prisons. And what they thought was, in order for us to have a successful prison, we got to fill these cells. So they went to the music industry and they completely shifted rap from conscious understanding of hip hop and what the streets are going through and how to pull yourself up from the ghetto to killing, shooting. And it really affected the culture in such a way, because music has an effect, Plato says, on a culture, that it literally filled up the seats and the cells of these private prisons so these investors can make their money. So and then what ended up happening, and the guy was there at that meeting in 1992, and that's why you saw a huge shift before and after in the early 90s.
Excellent point there. It is very much a flashpoint, at least a micro flashpoint, because I don't know how much is going to be remembered, where it is the perfect just thing that comes at the right time, and it speaks to so many across so many platforms, and it is just a reaction to WEF and all of these other things, and the fact that the housing market is continuing to be artificially held up and food prices continue to go up. Catherine, lesbian lady, comes out and says it's working. Don't worry about it. Everything's going great.
Bidenomics.
Bidenomics is here to stay, and all of this other kind of nonsense. And so it's just something to kind of just push back and just really speak with one voice. So it is like I said, it was interesting. So yes, we have taken care of that. We've covered that. Let's shift to another idea here in culture right now. And I think we'll actually use Enoch's quote about racism to jump into our next story here, that it's manufactured. This week, Michael Orr, you may have known him from the movie The Blindside back in 2009 with Sandra Bullock. She won an Oscar for a terrible accent. He played that accent is terrible in that film, by the way. Maybe they gave her an Oscar because it was that bad. It was so bad. I have thoughts, but he went after the family that adopted him, claiming that they had, I don't know, suppressed him or controlled his life because he was a conservatorship. Anyway, I know Jason Whitlock has been tackling the story, so let's see if he can catch you up to speed better than I can.
Everything is about me and how does it impact my brand. And that's what Michael Orr is really complaining about. Hey, this movie didn't enhance my brand. It didn't show me as a 7-year-old developing this brilliant visionary plan to become a professional athlete. And now you have all these people, media people, Mike Florio, others, everybody in corporate media that's so detached from a biblical worldview. Michael Orr is right. That movie was about him. It was about his life. It was about everything about it was about him. No, man, the movie was really, and I don't blame him, Michael Oher was part of the story, but the story was about the sacrifice the Tuohys made. And I don't have a problem with it because I'm not judging things based off of, well, they're white, and so I can't celebrate their sacrifice. I see the movie, and I rewatched it yesterday, and I saw it when it came out. I see the movie as like, oh, look at these Christians, and look at the sacrifice they're willing to make. And this woman fell out with her friends over allowing this black boy to come into her house with that daughter in her house. Wow, look at these Christians. That's the message. But again, if you have these racial lenses on, oh, look at these white people. And man, they must have been thinking about the money they were going to make off this black kid. It's a ridiculous thought. These people were millionaires long before they ever came across Michael Tuohy. They had owned a bunch of fast food restaurant chains that put millions of dollars in their pocket, and they eventually sold it for $200 million. When you start evaluating a crime, you identify motive. And Michael Oher is alleging that a crime took place, that he was exploited, and they misled me and said they adopted me, and really they owe me millions of dollars. He's alleging there's a crime. And so the first thing, okay, well, hold on, what's the motive here? Oh, money. Well, they got plenty of money. So maybe money is not their motive. So then does Michael Oher have plenty of money? Well, I don't know. I mean, he made a nice sum of money, but there's plenty of research and studies to say these NFL players go broke. Half of them go broke just 2 to 3 years after their career is over, despite all the money they made. So maybe his motive is money. And if you go read his books, and if you watch his interviews and the things that he's done, he's selling a second book right now, and he would love to profit from the first movie, and if not, he would love to hoodwink someone into making a second Blindside movie where he's the star and where everybody focuses on how he persevered and the adversity that he overcame. It's hard to reconcile the Tuohy family's supposed affection for Michael Oher with the blistering statement they authorized their lawyer to issue on their behalf. And Mike Florio is white. He's a guilt-ridden white person that is, in my view, has all kinds of racial hang-ups, and he's trying to beard his racial hang-ups and his racial bigotry by pretending to be this champion of racial justice. And so he's putting out a tweet, pretending like, oh my God, can you believe this? They say they love Michael Oher, and they put out a statement defending themselves. That just shows you they don't love Michael Oher. They should have just laid back and let Michael Oher slander them and disparage their character and villainize the sacrifices that they made. They shouldn't contradict any of this at all. If they loved Michael Oher, they're not allowed to defend themselves. They're white, he's black. This is silly. But this is the mindset that has been promoted when you put on racial lenses to evaluate everything, because everybody knows that if a black wealthy couple had brought a homeless white boy into their home and made the sacrifices the Tuohys did, Michael Florio wouldn't tweet any of this garbage out. No one would believe Michael Oher if his name was Michael Weinstein.
Very interesting. Very interesting that this stuff continues to come out. He also, Willock also had a good point talking about the idea of, you know, no good deed goes
No good deed,
unpunished,
yeah.
and being careful about that.
Yeah,
But
Steve Kim had one because if you want to adopt somebody, don't adopt somebody in the United States, but get some Vietnamese kid that will be grateful down the road.
yeah, right. Go get one from China. Go get one of the 400 million from China if you really need one. But this whole thing, it was a feel good story, and the fact it was made in 2009, before Obama was while Obama was in office, because many people have remarked that race relations were actually, which means this movie was greenlit before Obama was actually in office. So it was greenlit and made before and while he was there. To this time, an idea where you could actually work together and things like this, and the idea of the feel good sports movie, because that's one thing that sports used to be before it became what it is now, a unifying force, everything people can get behind, and so forth. So to see this something that everybody could agree out, besides the fact that Sandra Bullock's accent was trash, but the movie was very enjoyable. It's just another sad commentary, John, on the fact that culture, like we were talking about with Maui, anything in the past needs to be destroyed and it needs to be rebuilt.
Yeah, exactly. I gotta say, Jason Whitlock, he just continues to impress me. At first, I used to tell myself when I'd see him on Tucker Carlson, he's the one who just would be I don't know. I guess I'd call him as raw as anybody that Tucker used to have on frequently, but he would always leave Tucker kind of speechless. And I thought that's the sign that he's got some stuff that's just kind of coming to him, and he's giving it to you straight. It's not scripted. He's been thinking deeply about the things that he talks about on his show, and it's just really impressive. So he hits a lot of nails in the head there. But one thing he said that just made me think of something from, ancient Christianity that, my little area of supposed expertise, what my degree's in, is that, look at these Christians. Look at these Christians. He kept repeating that. So that was a relatively well-known phrase back in the day that even the pagans would say about, and I mention this especially because it's something that I'm not sure it could still be said about a lot of us nowadays, is look at those Christians. Look at how they love one another. That's how they were known in the early church by the pagans. Look at how much they love one another. Just as we were kind of talking at other times about the whole Unite the Clans thing and different, how should we say, obstacles and roadblocks to that. Look at those Christians. Yeah, look at how much they love, and even look at how much they love one another was the phrase that was said by pagans, but even extended by the saints to look at how they love their enemies. So yes, the folks are not of the true faith there that took in this guy on which the Blindside movie's based and all, but still, you could say motivated by things that our Lord, who's the founder of the One Holy Catholic Apostolic Church, did and said while he was on earth. So things that, continue to motivate all Catholics today, or should. So, just God bless Whitlock for his really poignant comments. And would that we could say that about all Christians, and especially us Catholics. Look at those Christians. Look at how they love one another.
Very good point. Twaz, your reaction to this thing, that the movie that was made, which was not even, the Tuohys didn't write it or didn't write it. It was a chapter from another guy's book that was expounded upon and made into a film. And yet,
just a little hint on that one. It was about the Lawrence Taylor hit on Joe Theismann. It was about the blindside because that's his right tackle. He got blindsided and destroyed Theismann's career after that tackle. And the author knew the Tuohys and heard about what was going on and decided. And he's also the guy that did the movie, did Moneyball.
Yeah.
And so they figured, hey, let's do this. So the family got money from the book, everybody, including Michael. And apparently none of the family Michael didn't get any. I think he said none of the family got money from the movie. Michael definitely didn't get any, but I don't think anybody did or something like that. But yeah. So
from what I heard, I think it was like 14 grand each. It was not a lot of money. It was not like there were not residuals on the back end, like 2% or whatever, because the movie made $300 million. None of the Tuohys and got a sniff of that.
Yeah.
So, Flaws, your thoughts?
Well, the family was blindsided. But I mean, I'll be honest with you guys. This is the first time I heard about the story, and I've never seen the movie. So, but St. Pio was asked one time, and he jokingly said, they asked him, "What's the greatest of all sins?" People say pride. And he jokingly said curiosity, because that's what Eve had. It was curiosity. And unfortunately, when it comes to people writing books, there has to be some type of scandal or some type of controversy in order for the book to do well, because it peaks, because people's curiosity peaks in, and because we're still suffering some of those fall that we got from Adam and Eve, and curiosity is one of them. Heck, Steve, it's the reason why we're even on social media, because curiosity, we're always wanting to know, it's gossip, what's going on with this person, that person. Curiosity runs our economy. So, I remember back when Scottie Pippen wrote his book about a year ago, he came out and he had his crazy allegations about Michael Jordan. Why? Because it's what sells the book. So usually what I'd say, there's a projection aspect of this. If this guy's coming out here and saying that the reason why they adopted me and that they helped me out is for money, it's probably what he's doing this for, and he's just projecting that on them. And it seems to me like in order for you to sell a book nowadays, there has to be some controversy, and it's such a feel-good story, I guess you guys are saying. So what greater controversy than to dump on the family that helped you out, that gave you your start to begin with? And money will do that to people. Money and fame, loyalty means nothing. We saw what happened with Brian Kemp. Trump is the reason why he's the governor of Georgia. And he'll turn back to his back on Trump all day and any day.
You can say the same thing with DeSantis.
Same thing with DeSantis.
Yep.
Yeah. Loyalty's not there, unfortunately, with people.
Yeah, if you don't know the story background of it, is this family found this kid living in the street. His mom was a drug addict. I think they had 11 kids. And they basically started hanging out with him, started taking care of him, and then they invited him into the house. And so how many years of 3+ meals a day, laundry, taking him to and from school, camps, whatever. And also, they're Ole Miss alums or Ole Miss boosters, and they never forced Ole Miss on it. I think they told me to go anywhere they want. A friend of theirs was an agent, but he picked any agent they wanted. People have come out saying white saviorship or something like that.
White savior complex.
White savior complex. They were saying they knew that they were going to cash in on this big black kid, and someone had a great joke. If Miss Toohey or Mr. Toohey, who was a basketball player, can spot a potential offensive lineman at 18, they have a better eye for talent than most people at ESPN. And,
by the way, when's the last time an offensive tackle made the difference for a national championship team?
And that too. I mean, we wasn't talking about Cam Newton Jr. right there. This was a big fat offensive lineman at high school level kid. Nobody in their world thought, oh yeah, well, he's going to go NFL, go into the Super Bowl. And I think he won with Baltimore Ravens. He ended up coming to Carolina. He's upset that the movie portrayed him as an illiterate guy, which in an interview he didn't sound too bright. He was almost.
He also wrote in 2 books about the fact that he had struggles.
Yeah, 2011. He said it was in a conservatorship, so he knew that's what the lawyer came out saying. Wait a minute, in his own words. He said that this was it. Now, all of a sudden, was it 17 years later? Now it's a problem. Now he's saying that they did this to it. It's apparently the husband and wife said there's been a shakedown a couple of years ago. They wanted more money. It's nuts. It's like, dude, what are you doing out here? I mean, this family, and he's saying, oh, by the way, when I was 7, I watched Barkley play Jordan, and I said then that I was going to be a professional athlete, and I did. It was on my terms. I did it. I was going to go this. It was me. I made it that way. All right, so how would you do it without the Toohey family? You'd be either a bodyguard for the drug dealers, you'd be dead. But no, these guys are these guys who took you out of the ghetto and who had their mom come to the judge to make sure this was okay, and she approved it, and everyone on their brother approved it, and they got the okays for it because I think it was 18 at the time. And they wanted to make sure this was on the up and up, and all. They made sure everything was right, and he still comes back as Steve Kemp said. Yep.
Well, it's all because
no good deed goes unpunished.
As Floz was saying, race sells. You know, that race gets attention. He's trying to promote his new book. He's also riding the wave of the conservatorship controversy from Britney Spears, how everybody was freaked out about that. And now, of course, that woman has gone absolutely nuts off the rails. She needed her conservatorship, but because a documentary slighted it one way, now everybody looks at that as a dirty word, and so all he has to do is come out and say, well, I was under conservatorship too, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, does that mean this evil southern white family was literally having you pick cotton before you went out to football games, or whatever kind of nonsensical thing they can come up with to try and paint this in a racist fashion, to try and invoke that southern, unfortunately, reputation of slavery and all this other kind of stuff, so he can cash in, because he is probably running low on money. You know, I mean, NFL players are not great with money. Neither are NBA players or any of these other guys. Unfortunately, you know, you take a guy like a Michael Orr, who he was on the dean's list in college. He was not stupid by the time he got out, but yeah, everybody's financially literate. If you're 21 years old and they hand you a $20 million contract, I'm 42, and if you hand me a $20 million contract, I'm probably going to blow most of it.
He was saying he was embarrassed that he'd go into the locker room and people didn't think he was smart for not knowing the playbook because of the movie showing. Wait a minute, nobody heard this argument till this week. And you had all this time to talk about that or bring it up. The movie came out in 2009.
I coached high school in Dallas. I coached high school football in Dallas for a couple of years. Michael Orr was not the only one that was getting through stuff, not being able to fully read and write based on their athletic abilities.
Oh, every college
I'm not trying. These were good kids that I was coaching in Dallas. They were some of the best kids ever. They were coming from rough situations, and so they were not, you know, and of course the public education system in Texas is so terrible that they're just throwing them through as long as they do well on the standardized test. So, I mean, Michael Orr talking about not being able to read or write, that's pretty much across the board inner city kids coming out of those areas. It doesn't matter if they're athletes or not, because they're getting passed over.
Just look at sports in general college. Notre Dame, they have the athletes have a lower SAT level than the regular Joe. I think it's like 1320 for a regular kid to get in Notre Dame, but for athletes like 700. So it evens out. I mean, North Carolina had this big thing with Butch Davis back in still last year. University of North Carolina had it because they had these people coming out with cheating, things like this. You ever watch the movie The Program? That can kind of get you an idea of what goes on.
Blue Chips.
With
Shaq and Penny. It's tough to get through though. There's a lot of cursing in that movie.
Now it's worse now with the identity thing. They can do anything. They got gambling issues now in college. You don't know who's getting paid what, and then kids are leaving left and right. You talk about loyalty, they ain't nothing now.
Oh yeah, with the NIL, right? Name, image, and likeness, and the transfer portal. You know, I mean, kids are transferring to 4 different schools in 4 different years, and then being like, "I'm going to graduate school." It's like you've already been through 5 different schools, man. I don't know what you're graduating on, but yeah, it's completely terrible. And it's
great. I thought it was a great movie. I liked the movie though. I thought it was cool.
Oh, the movie's fine. Her accent's garbage, but the movie's fine. It's a cool sports movie. I have no problem with good sports movies. I love the film Glory Road. I think Glory Road is a great film.
Radio.
You know, not many people like Glory Road, but I think it's a great film.
What Steve
Radio
said,
is right where I grew up. Radio, yeah.
That's a good movie. Yeah.
Radio.
I've
never seen Radio.
Yeah. So what Steve said earlier actually was what reminded me of a movie. The fact that he didn't know. I don't know if you guys remember Richard Pryor and See No Evil, Hear No Evil with him and Gene Wilder. He's he's on the train, and so his sister's like, "Sit down, you're causing the scene. You're black." He goes, "I'm black. Does Dad know?" Because he was blind, you know.
Or Dave Chappelle, the white supremacist skit. Yeah, that one classic as well.
Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Yep. He's black. Well, I worked in Blazing Saddles. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, enough of that.
The sheriff is near.
Give Dad a pass. But moving on. So it's time for, I mean, we've covered through everything. It's time to get with our Saint of the Week and the Cry Room. So, John, up first, man. What do you got for Saint of the Week and Cry Room?
Man, I'll
Sandra Bullock's accent for the Saint.
Oh man, that's a tough one.
Put you on the spot.
You want me to come back to you?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do some thinking. I was
Floss.
laughing too hard.
Yeah, my Saint of the Week is going to be Father Stan Fortuna, man. I spent the weekend with him. I hadn't seen him in 10 years. And he walked into the room and somebody was like, hey, introduce you to Enoch. I said, Father, you don't remember me? And he's like, Fawas? It was so great to see him again. He was actually, it's funny, he was in India, traveled back to JFK, traveled back to UK, traveled back to JFK, traveled to LA to do the that's my man, to do the the man traveled like 23,000 miles just to go out there in his age to preach and to play music. What a talent, what an amazing guy. Love me some Father Stan. That's my Saint of the Week. My Cry Room is going to be Rachel Zegler. I think that's how you say her name.
Yep, you got it.
Somebody
Yep.
take her.
You got it, buddy. Great job.
That's
No, go ahead. That's
going
fine,
first,
go.
man. Yeah, that's her, man. I mean, obvious reasons. You know, wait for the movie to flop like it always does, and then she comes out and says, "Well, it flopped because all of you are sexist." Yeah, whatever. AOC Part 2 over here. So
Yeah,
that's my Cry Room.
I mean, she is. It's so bad that you have PR firms that are like, "Yeah, you can't hire this girl anymore. She is a walking disaster." She's literally the definition of entitled Gen Zer, right? Everything should be handed to her, and so forth. So yeah, she's awful. Great pick. John, you good? Do you want to come back in? All right, tag back in, buddy.
All right, so I think I got it now. I'm sure we've already given him Saint of the Week at some point, but guy has done a lot. Djokovic, all right. This time for just persevering and not making a big deal about it, but making it through the whole vaccine ban. Came back to the U.S., played some tennis, and also because he's given a fair bit of he's been good with his money, and has from what I could tell. I mean, you can just get who knows what you find online sometimes about these pro sports players, but was good and prudent with his money. I think maybe even hired somebody to kind of help him make sure he took care of his money well. But as obviously given a lot of his money to build some Orthodox monasteries and whatnot. Let's hope they can come back in full communion with the Holy Catholic Church, make things even perfect there. So that's for him, also just for kind of persevering in that conviction that he was healthy and didn't need anything on top of that. So very happy that he made it through that. As far as a cry room, I'm going to put in the president of Brazil. I've got some really good friends, especially one really good friend, but a few pretty close friends there that live in Brazil just from time in the seminary and also from time in Rome. And it seems like the president of Brazil is doing some really horrible things with there you go. Not just climate change and all that kind of stuff, but also what they're doing with the currency over there to make things pretty much all electronic. So a lot of horrible things that this guy who basically was in jail and somehow got, the overturning of, basically was allowed to leave. And then I know they could put anybody in jail nowadays in the US, but it seems like this guy actually was corrupt, and how he got voted in after Bolsonaro was doing a really good job with Brazil, I don't know. But he seems like he's really doing some bad things for the country there. So he's in my cry room there.
Excellent choices, as always. Steve, what you got?
Saint of the Week, I'm going to go with, I know people don't like it because there's a prominent Twitter guy out there called him saying we shouldn't talk about a Hindu in a good way.
What are your opinions on the LGBTQ plus community?
Well, I don't think it's one community.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, how could it be? Just mashed together in alphabet soup. Trans is fundamentally in tension with gay, if you ask me. But what's your opinion?
I'm personally pansexual, so I was
Okay.
just wondering what your views
How's your Tupperware?
on same-sex couples were.
I don't have a negative view of same-sex couples, but I do have a negative view of a tyranny of the minority. So I think that in the name of protecting against a tyranny of the majority, and there are times in this country's history where we have had a tyranny of the majority, we have now, in the name of protecting against tyranny of the majority, created a new tyranny of the minority. And I think that that's wrong. I don't think that somebody who's religious should be forced to officiate a wedding that they disagree with. I don't think somebody who is a woman who's worked really hard for her achievements should be forced to compete against a biological man in a swim competition. I don't think that somebody who's a woman that respects her bodily autonomy and dignity should be forced to change clothes in a locker room with a man. That's not freedom, that's oppression. And so I believe that we live in a country where free adults.
I just like how he was able to handle himself without yelling at her. He didn't name call. There's a good example of how we should be able to talk to the opposition like enemies, as Jonathan brought up. We've heard that many times. Look how they love look how they love each other. Look how they love the enemies. You look at our boys on Twitter. We don't look like we love anybody. We just start blasting people. So I thought that with the Vivek thing, and it was a lot of people were talking about it. It went quote unquote viral. I heard a lot of positive things about it. It's just a great way he handled himself. Don't agree with everything he said in the video towards the end, but I thought that was just great. I mean, I don't think that lady thought that that was going to happen, unless that was a plan. Who knows? But I thought it was a great response from him.
Oh, it worked, even if it was a plant. So
yeah.
I mean, if it did, mission accomplished. So
My crowd room will be our governor of the great state of North Carolina, because today there's been quite a few local bills that just went in. The vetoes were overridden. Here's one of them: ban on gender-affirming care for minors takes effect today in North Carolina. So I kept putting a post up. Federalism works. Act locally, think locally. The problem we got today is centralization. Everyone wants to be centralized because there's money involved in it. Those big dogs on TV, the talking heads, they don't exist. They don't make anything. If we do think locally, act locally, they have to have the big umbrella to talk about. They have to talk about we're a nation, we're a country, we're this. We have to have centralized authority. Hey, conservatives are centralized authoritarians too. And so you start acting locally, think locally. If you want the assumption as a federal holiday, ain't happening. But you can make it your state holiday. Italy, Austria, they were talking. There was people talking about those countries that had the assumption as a holiday for them. Well, guess what size those countries are? What is another name for country? State. The state of Austria had the day off. Why can't you work for the state of wherever you live and to have the day off? But if you're focused on getting DC to make it a blanket, you're not serious, and nothing's going to happen. But look what the states are doing. The 10th Amendment Center came out the other day with a bunch of blogs. Raw milk in North Dakota. I was going to say Notre Dame. North Dakota is open. What they did, Arkansas, free legal tender, or legal tender is gold and silver. North Carolina, the social things that have been done down here. You can do this at the local level. The enemy knows, and that's why Ohio got its butt kicked the other day. And I sent Rick, I think I sent the thing from you to you today about there's some group getting together to celebrate Roe, the end of Roe. Our people are still focused on the end of Roe. The enemy is focused on making Roe Part 2 a thing, both at the local, state, and federal entities. And we got our heads so far up. Yeah, we got to obey D.C. and make D.C. the greatest thing in the history of the planet. We're going to lose badly.
All right. Well said. All right. So my cry room, after going through 4 additional alternatives after Fawaz took mine, which was fine. Well done. Just great minds stealing from even better minds. But I'm going to go with DeSantis. I was going to make Vivek for singing Lose Yourself, but that is 2024, and that's just how this goes. But DeSantis, his campaign continues to flop, and it's kind of sad. He should just stayed in Florida. No loyalty would have been great there. My saint of the week is Michael Thomas. A lot of you know Michael Thomas from the Catholic Land Movement. Great guy. So in an hour, I'm going to have an interview with him. I did it last night with him, and it was awesome. We spoke for an hour about the Catholic Land Movement, about his favorite ranch, his recommendations for ranch hands for a firearm, what kind of that, his favorite animals, and all kinds of great stuff. So check it out on YouTube, and it's already on Rumble. and I'm trying to get it up on Spiritus, but if you're on YouTube, it'll be up at 5:30. It's already up on Rumble if you want to take a look at it. Great interview to the great Michael Thomas. Thank you for giving me some time. Greatly appreciated for him as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this episode of News from the Pew. Please like, subscribe, and share the News from the Pew. We thank you so much for hanging out with us. We'll talk to you next week. Maybe not next week. We'll see how it goes because I will be in North Carolina for the Martyrs Walk. So we'll see if we can get one in maybe Wednesday, maybe not. I don't know. We'll have to play it by ear. Maybe I'll just go to Steve's house and we'll do two from, I'll just sit on and Steve can sit on my lap while we do News from the Pew together. I don't know. God bless and Viva Cristo Rey.
Viva!